Gentlemen, whoever come a little closer, it's a chesed to me. Okay. Tzidkas Hatzadik, Ois Samach Aleph. The Shiur today is sponsored by Mrs. Ruthie Rubenstein, that's Gil's mom, לעילוי nishmas her father, Shmuel ben Yosef. Shamash Haven Aliyah. Kohanim nikru kedoshim. Kohanim are called kedoshim, holy people. U'k'may shenemar v'yibodel Aaron lahakdishay. Aaron separated them lahakdishay. I don't know why he goes all the way to Divrei Hayamim when this is a clear pasuk in Parshas Ba'aleischa. Yivdeltas halavim. Ubechol zaroi acharav yesh madrega zu, and for all the offspring of Aaron, there's this madrega of kahuna. So we're talking about Kedusha. The subject today is Kedusha, which is an astonishing topic. Rak shechalukim bein ma'at v'rav. There's different levels of Kedusha. Ad Aaron shu tachlus madregas haKedusha. So Aaron is the ultimate Kedusha. And since there's Kedusha to Kohanim, which we all know that, right? We all know that Kohanim have Kedusha, but we don't think about so much as Kedusha, like Hektish. Beis HaMikdash is Kodesh, Beis HaMikdash, that's what it's called. Kohanecha HaKedoshim, that's what we say in Chanukah. Kohanecha HaKedoshim. What does it even mean? That's what we need to discover. What does it mean? They do the avoda, because they're kedoshim. That's why you have to do the avoda. And you see, Kohanim have more mitzvahs than everybody else. Why do Kohanim have more mitzvahs than everybody else? The reason is the whole idea of doing a mitzvah. We put on tefillin, you put on tzitzis, you give tzedakah. The whole idea of doing a mitzvah is to give us kedusha, as we say multiple times a day. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivanu. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvaysa v'tzivanu. So let's pay attention to one of the most basic things that a Jew does, rachta bracha. And in this bracha, if it's a berachas hamitzvahs, he says, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav, that I am now becoming holier. Not I'm doing the right thing, not I'm doing the Ratzon Hashem. All that's true, of course. Not anything Kabbalistic, so it seems, just a very simple thing. Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav, before we do a mitzvah, if it's appropriate, you make a bracha, Asher kiddushanu b'mitzvaysav, you have made us holy by giving us mitzvahs. A Kohen has more mitzvahs, so since a Kohen has more mitzvahs, even holier. So the more mitzvahs you have, the more holy you are. Let's say a non-Jew has 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noach, so he's 7 mitzvahs holy. A Jew has Taryag mitzvahs, which he doesn't really have. Maybe have 200 mitzvahs that we're doing, so we're much more holy. A Kohen has more mitzvahs because the Beis HaMikdash Yakayim Be'ez Hashem, there'll be more mitzvahs. So men are holier than women. Asher kitshanu b'mitzvaysav.
You should put that in the sign for this year.
Rabbi is making titles. So you got your title. Men are holier than. Okay, but let's hang in there for a minute, because B'nemar, we say in Shabbos davening, Kacheinu b'mitzvaysecha. Mitzvahs make you holy. It doesn't go without saying. It's interesting. Mitzvahs make you holy. And it says in Bamidbar, you should do all my mitzvahs, and therefore be yisem kedoshim. And of course, the question is, what is Kedusha? Like you said it, but I want you to think, open your mind for a second. I think when we think of Kedusha, or a person who's Kadosh, we think of it as, I think we think about it as holy. And almost, I looked, there's not every translation I looked in, so probably in almost every English translation, Art Scroll, Hirsch, of the Chumash, it says Kedoshim, Kadosh, holy. Holy is a German word, heilig. Yeah. So, what does it mean? What does holy mean? Agreed. Like, what does holy mean? It certainly took. The word took. Holy. We're a holy people. We're a holy nation. I'm Kadosh. So I just want to think for a moment on the most basic level. Is that what does holy mean? Is that even the correct translation? But what would So when we say holy, I'm not sure what that means, but when we say Kedoshim, we often think about it as like the Chaim was an Ish Kadosh, like he was. Here he's telling us a Kohen is an Ish Kadosh. Kohen Gadol is like really out of this off the charts Kedusha. But we see it as to put it in Lumdisha terms, we see it as a din of the Hefza. I think that's the normal way of talking. But everybody here is holding back from saying, but Rashi's Oknishta. Rashi says, Kedoshim to you, Prushim to you. So Prushim to you. Okay, that in itself, please pause for a second and understand what that means, because I hear it always explained incorrectly. Prushim to you, Hashem says, Moshe Rabbeinu says, B'Shem Hashem, to Klal Yisrael. Listen, Kedoshim to you, Ki Kadosh Ani. I'll already speak out. What do you want me to do? We're already doing Taryag Mitzvahs. What's this extra thing of Kedusha? So Rashi says, Prushim to you. Prushim to you. Prushim means to be separate, but I think it's often misunderstood, completely misunderstood, that Prushim to you means you should be a parush. Meaning, you really want that coffee now? Put it aside. Stop eating sugar. Don't overindulge in Taivas Olam Haza. All that is true. The Ramban speaks out the whole list of things that you should do not to be a novel Birshus HaTorah. But it's a simple truth. When Rashi says Prushim to you, what he means to say is don't be like the Goy, you're something different. That's what it means. Kedoshim to you, Ki Kadosh Ani, just like I'm something different. Targum, Muvdal Ani, and therefore you're Muvdoin. It doesn't mean it doesn't mean that you should be a parush. That's not the pshat. What it means is that you are a separated people, just like Kohanim are a separated group of people within the Jews. Just like when you stand under the chuppah, you say, Hareat Mikudeshes Li. Nothing becomes holy there unless you're saying false drushes. Hareat Mikudeshes Li. Asr alai kehektish. The whole word hektish does not mean that the item has some kind of intrinsic kedusha to it. Hektish means you've set it aside for holy use. You've set it aside for once you've set it aside, so now if you've set it aside, don't use it for regular use. You've set it aside. We set aside, what's the opposite of Kodesh? Chol. So Chol, Svarim say, Chol, it means, what's the word, secular, mundane, Chol, regular. But Chol means sand. And sand is the most sort of common thing in the world. You go to the beach, nobody is distinguishing between one piece of sand and the next piece of sand. Nobody's counting the sand, as the Chumash says. Like sand is chol. Everywhere, buildings have sand. Everything is sand. But there's a diamond in the sand. That's something which is separate. So Kodesh means that you've taken all of this chol of the world, chulin. You've taken all the chulin of this world, all the people of the world, and let's set something aside for Hashem. So kedoshim tiyu mufrashim, shetiyu mufrashim means in pshat that you are something different. You know, if you wake up in the morning and you say, I want to do like a goy thing today, so you're something different, do it, but that's chulin. You find throughout Chazal, by the way, this lashon as like of even in Tanakh, asa atzmai chulin. Like what do you make yourself chulin? Chulin is regular kedusha set aside. What is the Beis Hamikdash? It's read the Torah. Beis Hamikdash is the part of the world, a spot on the earth, which is set aside for dvarim shebekdusha. Why can't you walk on the Har HaBayis if you're tamei? You can't walk on the Har HaBayis if you're tamei because that's then you're taking away from its regularity. Why can't you talk in the Beis HaKnesses, which is dedicated as a Beis HaKnesses? What are you doing chulin in a makom kadosh? Why is this a makom kadosh? Unless you made a t'nai and all the lumdish things. So what do you make? What do you make it t'nai? I was like, okay, I'm not setting it aside. I've often spoken about this, that you know, all a t'nai means that I'm going to daven here, but I'm not really setting it aside. Is that good or bad? We talked about it, right? But it doesn't really work otherwise, you know. But what it means, a Beis HaKnesses is mikdash ma'at. What does that mean? That you've taken a place somewhere in this neighborhood, and it's not for sports, and it's not for my living, and it's not for eating or restauranting and all kinds of things. This is a place which is miyuchad l'kedusha, just like the Beis HaMikdash. What is everything in the world? I take something from my nechasim, and I make it hektish. I take some food, I make some oranges, and I say, this is going to be hektish for the Beis HaMikdash. So what does it mean that it's hektish? It doesn't receive a kedusha b'etzem. You don't have to put it in Shabbos, which is an interesting sugya to itself. But what it means to say is that it's set aside. So when Rashi says, prushim to you, or mufrashim in arayis, all the different lashonis of the Rishonim there, even the Ramban, what they really mean simply is that don't, you're special, put yourself aside, kedoshim to you. You're doing the Taryag mitzvahs, fine. But kedoshim to you is, are you putting yourself as a something separate? You know, what's a nazir? Nazir is kadosh. Why is a nazir kadosh? I'm not going to do the stuff that everybody else does. That's,
how does the Torah use the expression for women?
Well, that's the best proof to what I'm saying, because she's set aside for a bad thing. And lahavdil harei mukadeshesli, you're set aside as a wife. So yoter. Exactly right. That's why I said, why does he have to go all the way to what the pasuk says? Where's my psukim people? Havdil as b'nei Levi, kilihem. Is that the lesson, pasuk? Kilihem. Hashem says, separate all kinds of things you do. You take the Shevet Levi and you wave them around. And,
I'm saying here, he's not using the word lafdisha in any
lahavdil.
sense.
Lahavdil. And when we make it, right, exactly, because I think maybe when it comes to more Hasidic thought, so it might be thinking more in terms of Kedusha B'etzem. And Kedusha B'etzem, Kedusha Heinayim. My good friend Clark Valberg, give him a call out, just put out a beautiful sefer he had done based on the Shiur of Rav Morgenstern, called Kedushas HaAchila. Its translation, Kedushas HaAchila. I didn't read it yet, but the title grabbed me, Kedushas HaAchila. What is that? So, what is that? Like, the food became kadosh? I've heard the term, it just made me think. The food became kaddish, you became kaddish, you're eating with kedusha. Is kedusha something that you practice or is something you become? the hakira on the table.
Happens to be I saw it just yesterday. Shulman and Kedusha. So a quote saying, "Person becomes on his bail,"
Which is also set aside.
and therefore the eating that he eats becomes Kroba's korban.
I just read the Mesilas Yesharim yesterday also, in your honor, and there's nothing in there that says that there's Kedusha Be'etzem. Let me.
What about Shulman?
Okay, so I'd really like to understand the halacha. What about Sefer Torah, all the way to Truma? What about a Sefer Torah?
You say, I'm not giving Kedusha.
So what are we saying there? This is the main, and Imein Lecha Das Havdalah Minayin. So, but look what we're saying over there. Mavdil ben Kodesh L'chol, being that you mentioned it. Ben Yisrael Amim, there should be a difference. The Bina should tell you there's a difference. Ben Yoyim Hashvi L'Sheshes Yimei Amasa, set aside a day for Shabbos. Shabbos Kodesh, which means that it's set aside. Here's a quiz question for you. Torasenu HaKedusha. Where does that come from? Torah has Kedusha. Huh? I knew you were going to say that. MBD. Right? I don't even know the words. The only words I know of it is Torah Torah Kedusha. Piyut. Oh yeah, I just the earliest source I could find for any kind of Torah HaKedusha, which is one of the most used terms, it's not in Tanakh and not in Chazal. The earliest source I could find earlier than MBD is the Piyut, the Slichus of Tzom Gedalia. So the Piyut of Tzom Gedalia said Torah HaKedusha. Okay, I'm sure he was a wonderful Payat. But what are we saying when we say Torah HaKedusha? The Torah, what we do know is that when we got to Har Sinai, I'm pro Torah. I just misunderstand. I'm being technical here. When we got to Har Sinai, so it was very clear. Our instructions were very clear to set aside this makom Har Sinai for Kabbalas HaTorah. It had Kedusha, Hagbel, prepare yourself for 3 days. That it had Kedusha, albeit a temporary Kedusha. It didn't, right, don't touch the mountain. What does it mean? Important to understand. It means this mountain is now dedicated for one thing. Don't. That's not a place for you to jog. It's not a place for you to pick vegetation, even though it seemed to have had an oasis factor to it. But it's not. No, we are now dedicating this mountain. Let's say it was the Sneh. We're now dedicating that to Hashem. In other words, we're taking a place on the earth, and we're dedicating it to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as opposed to the mountain starting to glow necessarily. Maybe it did glow, but that's not what the Kedushas Har Sinai. So Kedushas HaTorah, it doesn't say that term, so I don't feel like we have to explain the term that it doesn't say. But the Torah is what we received on Har Sinai, and we take the Torah, we learn the Torah, and then the Torah tells you Kedoshim Tiyu Ki Kadosh Ani, and we know which mitzvahs to do. And Talmud Torah brings us to a wonderful, great place. But the only thing that's kadosh in a Sefer Torah is the Askara Shabai, is the Shem Hashem, and you have to, and then the rest is Gvilin Agav, as the Rambam says. The Gvilin are kadosh Agav the Askara Shabai when they're in context and when they're written lishma. Every Torah Shekasav Nachri has no kedusha at all. So let me.
What does it mean that Hashem's name in the Torah is Kadosh?
Right. Ki Kadosh Ani, you mean?
No, we're saying Hashem's name in the Sefer Torah is Kadosh, not other words.
Right.
Muvdal.
Muvdal.
It's different.
It might be the exception. I want to examine it. So who talks about this? Whether that's what is the nature of the Kedusha of the Shemesh that are written? Rav Chaim Brisker on the 5th page of Kedusha Rabbeinu Chaim al Rambam. So there he talks in Hilchos Sefer Torah, right? And he talks about what is the nature of the Kedusha of the Askarais in a Sefer Torah. And he explains the distinction in good Reb Chaim Brisker method. He explains the description between the Kedusha of something which is Meshamesh the Askaris and the Kedusha of the Askaris Gufa and the different dinim that are there. But let's stick, the Shemesh is Kilu, the perhaps the Yotzei Barakal, but even what you said, the Mizbeach. Mizbeach is set aside a Mizbeach. Hektish, set aside Hektish. It's all set aside. Bris Kodesh. What is a bris kodesh? It's not that the person becomes kadosh there. It's a misinterpretation. What it means is this is now distinguishing you from everybody in the world who doesn't care about kedushas habris. Has to do with the bris and act like a different person. You're a Jew. And he dealt to the whole idea of acting Jewish. I don't want to say what you shouldn't act like, but the whole idea of acting Jewish is a kiyum of Kedusha. So what Hashem said to Moshe, just to say it all, synopsize this into one sentence, is Kedoshim to you. You should be Kadosh. Ki Kadosh ani. And the Taryag mitzvahs is not even enough. Understand the hashkafa that you're Jewish. The most important thing about being Jewish is being Jewish. It's if you think with the Rosh Gadol, it's not about the mitzvahs we do. The mitzvahs make us more miyuchad, but it's the Kedushas Yisrael is there. It's a metzias.
It's intrinsic. In other words, like the minute the Jewish Shalom is into the world, it's got a level of Kedusha there.
It's not that it's intrinsic. Who said it's intrinsic? No, I don't think it's intrinsic. The whole idea of Kedusha didn't come about until after Matan Torah, when we became a Yuchad. Avraham Avinu wasn't a Kadosh. But let me say something. I'll say a couple of things, very, very important things. Set aside. Seder, still set aside. Kedusha, Kitcha Rishona, Kitcha Lashaito, Kitcha Lasid Lava. This is the hope of the Jew, that it's still set aside, it's still important. You read on the news yesterday that, what's his name, the journalist who loves Israel, Douglas Murray, is that his name? So he was in Israel yesterday, and the Department of Antiquities gave him, for his tremendous work, he should be blessed, but they gave him a bell from the Kohen Gadol's, as the guy put it, from the Kohen Gadol's begin, that, and the presentation was that here's this bell, and the Kohen Gadol wore this bell when he walked into the Holy of Holies of the Beis HaMikdash. So first of all, the Kohen Gadol never wore a bell when he went into the Kodesh Kodesh. What?
It was the bottom of the meal.
Not the bell that he had, not the bell that makes noise. You go into with the big day love on in the Kodesh HaKadosh. Right, not wearing bells. But I just saw like a tumult. Like, how do you give him a davar kadosh? Are you giving it to a guy? And give him the Nobel Prize. But don't give him a bell from the from the meal of a. Because it's just like a Besukin Boys Indian. Like what is the what? The Nobel. Very good. Wow. Give him the Nobel Award. Well, is it true? In other words, the nature of the spell, I guess, in other words, we're going to hook it up to the future Kohen Gadol, and therefore, it doesn't have intrinsic Kedusha, it's a bell. But, right. So here the whole sugya of Kachim, all the Masechtas of Kachim, specifically Me'ilah, is all talking about what's called a chilul hektish and what's not called a chilul hektish, and what hektish can you be poda and what hektish can you not be poda. How could you ever be poda hektish? That idea is okay. If this was set aside for hektish, it's not. So now maybe I could be poda. I made a mistake, so maybe I could be poda that, make this hektish, and you have to be most of something on it, so you don't just play around. So let's say normal case, you're most of chamishasa, y'all love, and okay, I still at least have something dedicated to hektish. But what I want from all of us today is just to rethink the idea of Kedusha, and I want to speak about what Ruach HaKodesh is. I want to speak about Ruach HaKodesh. This is not personal experience, but Masha Binoisi Basvarim. What does it even mean, Ruach HaKodesh? Let me share with you, which I may have, before I get to that, let me share with you two things, which I speak about a lot. Number one is there's a philosophical hakira, which goes through it goes through the generations, but was brought out by the Vilna Gaon, and that's the shaila is when you say something is holy. You'll find this in Michtav Melio Chelak Hey. He writes about this in the Rav Vital in the Shar HaKedusha. Writes about this. It's different words, different terms, but the hakira is, as Rav Dessler himself explains it, is when you say something is holy, is it kelim or atzmios? Absorb the language here for a minute, it's very important. What a nuance. When you say something is kadosh, this is a chumash, right? So when you say something is kadosh, so is it kelim or atzmius? Does this have actual Kedusha in it, atzmius or Kedusha, like God? Presumably. Hashem is, see, when you say Hashem is muvdal, what it just means is we don't understand him. He's a mystery. And so too should be the Jewish people. So the Chaim says. But does this have atzmiyusay shel Kedusha? Or we give it a tremendous amount of respect because it's a keli from which you can learn Torah. Hence also a Talmud Chacham. If he's a keli from which you can learn Torah, so he's a keli. Is there such a thing as atzmiyusay shel Kedusha? Is all Kedusha kelim shel Kedusha? The question's clear? Nafkamina becomes avodah zarah. That's a small nafkamina. The Hainu, once you say something is actually holy, I might want to go worship that thing. And that's the Rambam in the beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah, that this is how the whole thing happened. Well, Hashem made the sun. We don't understand Hashem. We do get the sun, and we'll worship the sun. And we became sun worshippers, etc. It doesn't necessarily make philosophical sense to worship the sun, even if it was atzmiyus shel Kedusha, because the sun didn't create the world, as Avraham Avinu said, but creates a lot. A plantation, vitamin D, etc. The world will not work without if the sun did not rise. So, like Avraham Avinu's sort of chap, if you will, was that only thing that's worthy of worship is Hashem himself. But nafkamina is, should we start worshiping that? Nafkamina became, I'm a little bit on the edge here, but the nafkamina became very, very visible again with the founding of Hasidus. Because with the founding of Hasidus, there was a regesh, possibly a mistaken regesh by Amaratzim, that the Rebbe, which was an idea that the Baal Shem Tov put forward, right? I mean, the idea of a Rebbe, Hasidim Rebbe, is a different level of Kedusha. And like a blue blood thing. And it's it had nothing necessarily to do with how big of a Talmid Chacham he was, even though it's a huge Talmidei Chachamim in the history of Admorim. No question about it. I mean, these were goynim, but the philosophical question came out. It was most. It was mostly expressed, more than anyone else expressed it, not by the Baal Shem Tov, but by the Baal HaTanya. As the Baal HaTanya, when he describes Tzimtzum, or as the people like to call it, Tzimtzum Gomor, so what he's saying is that Hashem takes himself, Ruchnias, and Mitzamsem, until it can get into the Tzaddik Yisod Olam, to the Mashiach. So there's an Atzmius of Kedusha. Came to Vilna Gaon, he said, whoa. Like, what's going on here? Like, it's too far. Now, it was subtle. It was very subtle. And these were two of the greatest tzaddikim that ever walked this earth. I'm not. But the issue of Tzimtzum Gomor was not an issue of, and it's beyond the scope of the few minutes that I have here. There's a lot to say about it, but it goes beyond some kind of Kabbalistic, esoteric issue. The issue is that we look at the Vilna Gaon as a kli. He was a great Gaon. He was a great tzaddik, and he was able to bring down so much Torah. And it's hard to even understand how you can do that. There's no computer in the world that can do what he did. It's hard to understand. But Caleb, once you start attributing Kedusha be'etzem to a person, you have like a whole different level of person. So according to the Gra, hence you're just a Litvak. According to the Gra, Moshe Rabbeinu was not holier than anybody else in Klal Yisrael. Although in the sense of like he dedicated his life to Hashem, in that sense he was more mufrash. But that, not that his skin shined, well, his skin did shine, but not that he was like be'etzem, another different kind of person.
So that earlier on, Nabi went to his life, is not etzem, it's good became more color.
So how do you know? Maybe it says he was a Kaddish. It says even Elisha was a Kaddish. Ish Kaddish, it says in Tanakh, is Talmud. Elisha was a Talmud of Eliyahu Navi. Maybe that's because it was so dedicated, just like the Beis HaMikdash went up. I just want to tell you a story that I heard. Piv Shel Rav Soloveitchik. I may have repeated this before. Olav Shalom. Rav Soloveitchik says this is the story of. I think I'm quoting it pretty verbatim. This is the story of the Baal HaTanya and the Vilna Gaon. And I heard this story from my mother, and I know it's true because my mother never told me anything that wasn't true, he said. This is brisker Masorah on all sides. And he said the story is that there was machlokes growing in Klal Yisrael, and the Maggid, the Mezritcher Maggid and the Baal HaTanya said we have to visit the Vilna Gaon. Talk to him. Reasonable. Let's talk to him. When you think about this, it was halavai people would be thinking about these things these days. But it was very moshech. It's a very inspiring idea to think of Tzimtzum Hashem b'toichenu, the Pintel Yid. It's very inspiring. It's a piece of God within me. Shine your light. It's a very inspiring idea. And it works idea. And we like it, but is it true? Like there's a piece of God inside of every person. You have to be Doma to Hashem. You have to go in the derech of Hashem. But is it true? So anyways, these two tzaddikim, what? Okay, let's talk about the shaman in a minute. But these two tzaddikim came to see the Vilna Gaon, and they had a hard time getting into the Vilna Gaon because he was guarded and like, who are you? And the Vilna Gaon, they finally got to the door of the Vilna Gaon. They knocked on the door, and the Vilna Gaon opened the door a drop closed the door. He saw who it was, and he jumped out the window and disappeared for a couple of weeks. And they knocked again. And, so people like to say, I would say superficial commentators like to say, oh, if only they would have met, just talk for a minute. Hashem runs this world. And nobody to question the Gaon or the Balatanya. So Rav Soloveitchik, this is a story everybody knows. He jumped out a back window, literally, ran away. Why did he run away? When he talked to them. So Rav Soloveitchik said that our Messiah is that when he saw their faces, these two tzaddikim, and they were so shining, and they were so brilliant, and the Hadras Panim was blinding, he said, I won't be able to argue with them. I won't be able to do this, so he ran away from it. That's a different story. Okay, now my pirish. How could I say that there's no Kedusha be'etzem ha'adam when I'm looking at these people? They're atzmi yisrael Kedusha. I mean, how could I say it? But I know it can't be. So the Keli will shine. And maybe even Eliyahu Navi will go up to the Shemaim direct. But once you start talking about atzmi yisrael Kedusha, you're in trouble. We don't have such a thing. I'm just saying we don't have such a thing because all the Kedusha we know is because of all the Kedusha we know is Kedoshim to you, which Rashi tells us very clear in Shem Chazal. It's a Chazal. Rashi tells us Dvarim Berurim, that it means it's Muvdal, you should be separate. Am Navdil Ben Kodesh L'chol, Ben Oil L'choshech, Ben Yisrael La'amin. It's the same thing like Shabbos.
How do you understand that?
What's Mechalel Shabbos? Think about it for a minute. Mechalel Shabbos. Yeah. Meaning you've taken a holy day, a set-aside day, and you made it regular. You made it regular by so the burcha shouldn't be chol.
Is darkness a lack of light, or is light a lack of darkness?
Haguf Akasha. Like that in itself is why that's the hag. That's Akdama. And the Goin talks about this, exactly this point. I don't want to oversimplify things, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying a Vart, I'm saying a Yisayt, that the Iker Machlokes, I would even go back, Lahavdil Olaf Havdalos, between Christians and Jews. Of the Avodah Zarah, Shapsai Tzvi claimed he was Atzmi Yeshel Kedusha. That's what he said. Read what he said. Atzmi Yeshel Kedusha. He is God on this earth. The rules don't apply to me. This comes from a kind of Kabbalah that we don't learn. We learn Ari Kabbalah. Everybody, Hasidim, Stagdim, Sfardim, Ashkenazim. We learn all, or Ramchal Kabbalah. But what we don't learn is Abulafian Kabbalah, which is also a great tzaddik, but had a lot of talk about Kedusha Ba'etzem. And Agav, I don't want to say what I don't know so well, but a lot of what's taught in the Kabbalah centers around the world is the wrong Kabbalah, but very appealing, because you feel very holy when you're there. For your consideration, and for me as a publisher, I wonder if holy is the right word, or is it really sacred and sanctified, sanctioned.
Sanctified also sounds like something.
Sanctified means put aside, like when you sanction a country. That's what it means. Sanct. Holy comes from German, sanct comes from Latin, and it means put aside. Okay, but asher kitshanu b'mitzvah, so maybe doesn't mean, maybe I'm just suggesting, maybe doesn't mean, I don't want to knock off every English translation from the time of from 200 years ago. But what I'm saying that it might be a misconception of what's really happening is sacred means not a holy cow, as the Goyim like to say, a holy cow. Holy, it always reminds me of Batman and Robin. Is anybody old enough here to appreciate it? Holy skyscraper. The holy cow, sacred cow, is probably the correct translation. Shevet Levi, as you pointed out, as he says, make a havdalah between Shevet Levi. They're more miyuchad. Kohanim, more miyuchad. Different families of Kohanim, more miyuchad, more sanctity there. Beis HaMikdash, more sanctity. Kodesh Kodashim, more sanctity. The question is like, how much is something put aside?
How's the broad understanding the Kohen, the small sanctity?
They're a Kalim. They have less work to do. And by the way, we didn't do it inside. Trust me on this. Is exactly what Rabbi Tzadok is saying, because and this is one paragraph. He has a sefer called Yisrael Kedoshim. The whole book is about this. The whole sefer is about the fact that when you do more mitzvahs, you're more kadosh, and the idea of being more kadosh is that you are miyached your achila, your miyached, your kedushas habris. I'm different. We must know that we are different. It's obviously been the Yitzhahara of the Jewish people from Yetzias from Mitzrayim to Ada Yom Hazeh to try not to be different, to assimilate. What does it mean to assimilate? Assimilate is the opposite of Kedusha. Assimilate means when two things come together and become one and the border is blurred. That's what the word means. In the English language assimilation is when two letters merge. Cupboard. Nobody says cup, board, even though that's the way it's spelled and that's the etymology and that's the source. Say cupboard. That's language assimilation. Jew marries non-Jew. What happens to the mavdil? Ben kodesh l'chol, ben Yisrael la'amin. You've just taken the whole thing and you've made it chol, and that's like bigger than an avera, if you will, bigger than an avera. So the hakira of kelim v'atzmius is something that I want to put on the table. Other thing I want to put on the table, what I heard once from Rav Moshe Shapiro, all of a sudden stuck in my mind forever, I hope. He said, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. He said something that only he could say. The term was never used, ever, until the Chorban Bayesheni. Anybody ready to make a statement like that? That's what he said. He said the term was never used. And here you have to ask the question, what happened by, not the Bayesheni. And I as much ad mokum sheyodi magas, I checked. Come on. It was never, the word for God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, was not used until the Chorban Bayesheni. There's so many names for Hashem, he asked. Like, why they have to come up with a new name? All of a sudden, Hashem, Ribono Shel Olam, so many names, the Eibishter, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So, Hu Shal v'Hu Ana, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Hamtakas Hadinim. Kedusha means something is completely muvdal and represents Midas Hadin. Bracha, misparech, means something that's not muvdal. On the contrary, it's not mutzumtzam, it's actually growing in front of you. Every bracha that we find is in your field. When something grows, it's a bracha. Something's mutzumtzam, it's kaddish. Faced with the Chorban Beis HaMikdash, the question was, is God with us or is he not with us? Like, what happened here? You know, the kind of miracles that we experience now, you know, lets us know, I mean, crazy miracles. If you don't see it, you're like, with respect, you're an idiot. It's clear miracles that Hashem is protecting the Jewish people. However, it makes us nervous because, first of all, like, but also makes us nervous because do we deserve this? And all of a sudden we have to be deserving. And when you hear something really crazy going on, you say, uh-oh, like there's a crack in the dome. And is it going to continue to protect? The question of the Bayis Sheni was something similar. If you'll know the history of the Bayis Sheni in the last 200 years, let's say from the Malchus, from Hanukkah to Tisha B'Av, there were miracles and miracles. Just the very fact that the Hashmonaim defeated the Greeks was a miracle, right? There was miracles and miracles that went on, and including like the pushing away, Titus's army and Vespasian's army. I mean, it didn't make any sense. There was a bunch of people screaming on a roof with little knives, the Sarikim, and they pushed them away. This was miracle of miracles until all of a sudden there was no miracle. And why we're not miracle? And this is what Chazal say. Where did it go? Okay, sinas chinam. Not to be taken lightly. There's not a shmooze about sinas chinam. It means there's a crack in the dome. Like what happened? And now that we are expelled, if you will, evicted, golus from Eretz Yisrael, from Yerushalayim, from the Beis HaMikdash, what is the relationship with Hashem? It's the very same question that Yecheskel Hanavi asked by the Chorm Bayis Rishon. Todavar. And he saw the Merkava to Dayek. Merkava is a Kli. Dayek. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu was the term that they came up with, which was Hamtakas Hadinim, Gam Kadosh, Gam Baruch. Even though it's a stira Minei Ubei. Kadosh means he's moved out, and Baruch means he's right here in front of us. I saw in the Netziv, I just printed it out. There we go. Netziv says, K'moisha Oz, this is in the Hamik Dover. Just the words. Yesh Ladas, the K'moisha Naga Atara B'Leviyim Noisei Oren Bris Hashem, just like the Torah talks about Levium, Kach Nagu Chazal b'Bayis Sheni sheyu Talmidei Chachamim Muvdalim Me'amei Haaretz. And the Bayis Sheni, and we know that by the way there was Eichel Chulin B'Taro. Besides that, there were Noyeg Bayis Sheni. So what happened in the Bayis Sheni with the Anshe Knesset Hagdola? Klal Yisrael became went from Beis HaMikdash centered. In the Bayis Rishon, we were Beis HaMikdash centered. We were Nevuah centered. It was all that kind of a relationship of Yiddishkeit. By the Bayis Sheni, we had a Bayis Sheni, but everything became Torah centered. So we went from, forgive my academic language, but we went from temple-centered to Torah-centered. That was a paradigm shift that took place with the Anshe Knesset Hagdola. And that's, by the way, where Pirkei Avos begins. But the Mashal Anshe Knesset Hagdola, Haim Amru. And in Kabbalistic words, it went from Isarusa de La'ela to Isarusa de Lasata. There was a paradigm shift in the Bayis Sheni. And what happened was, yes, there was Kohanim, and yes, there was Levium, and they were singing beautiful songs and all of that. There were a lot of things that there were in the Bayis Rishon that wasn't in the Bayis Sheni, one of them being the Shechina. Asar Dvarim, one of them the Shechina, that's a big one. Like, there's no Shechina in the Bayis Sheni.
So what about the Mishnah speaks about Hashokah Bayis?
So what?
Mishnah speaks about Hashokah Bayis, was expression for
A different level of Shechina.
What's that?
A different level of Shechina. And B'Bayis Shlishi, it'll be complete. Gilui Shechina. And the Bayis Shlishi, there were simanim of the Shechina, like the menorah, there were simanim of the Shechina.
Is it also relevant that Klal Yisrael wasn't all in Eretz Yisrael at that time?
Of course, of course. I mean, you can take this to the extreme, like Rabbi Yaacov Kamenetsky, like famously said that there was only Bayis Sheni was just to keep the idea alive. It wasn't even, which is, if he wasn't Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, who could even say such a thing? But it says the Netziv, something like I just said, The kach nagu chazal b'bayis sheni shu talmidei chacham muvdolim me'am haaretz. All of a sudden, Talmud Chacham became something different. Like everybody likes to quote the Rambam and Shemitah V'Yovel, you know. Big day amaris midrin leprushin. Kamaisha azhay levim noise arain. Used to be who carried the aron. The Levim carried the aron. There is no aron in the Bayis. Who carried the aron? Ayu merkava l'shchina. Begoinde gedude. Kach talmidei chachamim noisin hayoim kedushas hatayra. Paradigm shift. It's not a musar shmuz to stand up for Rabbanim. V'oifane kiyuma lefisha. Ubezen nasim merkava l'shchina shnei shuriya b'Yisrael. So all of a sudden the Torah, the Talmidei Chacham, became the merkava l'shchina. Shurei mishachar beis hamikdash ein la'kadosh baruch hu eladam shel halacha. It's a paradigm shift. It's a very deep thing.
Is there Kedusha in Eretz Yisrael?
It's the same question. So, you know, the machlokes, whether they should be nosha kipadaku. When you come to Eretz Yisrael, do you kiss the stones? Do you bend down and kiss the land? Is the shiloh of Kalim and Atzmis? Some said yes, some said no. Tosfos brings a raya that you see that they kissed the stones of Akko when they came to port. When they came into Akko, so you see that there's Kedusha B'atzim in Eretz Yisrael. It's still a Keli. Whatever you say, Eretz Yisrael is miyuchad for the Shechina. And therefore, like, there's a Rabbi Yalapian said that, if he had like a throat problem or something, but he said that if you would spit, clear your throat and spit on Eretz Yisrael, Aveira Chamurahi. Kedusha's Eretz Yisrael. No question that there's Kedusha's Eretz Yisraal. The question is, what is it? I mean, we walk on it, we step on it, more than if you're a lavatory.
In the shul. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I mean, I used to have sand talk, but I saw Yerushalmi spit in shul.
Yeah, but it's like a token spit. It's not. Listen, I'm thinking about a lot of deep things at once, and I don't want to lose it because I only have a couple of minutes. But Kalim and Atzmi is an important thing, which we need to go forward. Hakadosh Baruch Hu is a very important thing. Kadosh Muvdal Muvrach. Two different things. When we say Baruch Atah Hashem, what we're doing is bringing it into the neshama we haven't talked about, because that's the whole thing, really, when you think about it. But let me just end by talking a little bit about the neshama. Ruach HaKodesh, what is that? It's not nevuah. So everybody knows. Okay, Chazal say, well, it's pachas min nevuah, but it's higher than das. Chazal are very medayik in their words. What is Ruach HaKodesh? Let's just analyze it for a minute. I'll show you something that you probably...
The movement of Kedusha through the person.
Right, nice. Nice. It says at the beginning of Shmos, just remember this, that they wanted to get rid of the Jews, the anti-Semitism in Egypt, and their idea was that we'll beat the hell out of them until they stop being Jewish. So they, right? Misim, Laman Anoisai, Besivlois, and make them suffer. Even Ore Miskanais, Lafare, Espisaim, as Ram says. Says the Torah, look what happened here. Chasher Ya'anu Oisai, Kain Yirbe, V'chein Yifrites. It was like that famous frog, the more they hit it, the more came out frogs. So the more they hit the Jews, the stronger we became. Unexpected result. Something, by the way, we need to think about when we're trying to destroy ideologies. That sometimes, the more you hit it, I'm not a political, but sometimes the more you beat it, the worse it gets. You don't know what's going on. But this is true on some level, on every level, but on some level it's true sociologically speaking. Kasher Yano Isai, Kain Yirbe, V'chein Yifrites, V'yakutzu Mipnei Bnei Yisrael, Zok Rashi. The more they hit them, the bigger they became. The pshat is, Kasher Yanu Isai, as they beat them, Ruach HaKodesh Oimeres Kain. They said Pen Yirbu, right? They said, oh no, there's Jews, we've got to get rid of them. Pen Yirbu up, they call Aretz. Havan is Chakmalei Pen Yirbe v'hoyaki sukrena melchama v'noisav gamu al sanenu. We can't trust them. They're going to join the armed enemy. V'nocham banu. They're going to make a war against us. V'Allah min haaretz. So they said Pen. Let's get rid of them. Kasher Yanu, I say, but when they were suffering, Kain Yirbe. Hashem says, Ruach HaKodesh Omeres Kain, Atem Oimrim Pen Yirbe, Vani Oimer Kain Yirbe. You're saying that you're going to beat them and there won't be anything left of them. We're going to obliterate the Jewish people. And Ruach HaKodesh is saying, the more you beat them, the bigger they'll become. Okay, what a Gavaldik Rashi, Liyamenu. What does it mean, Ruach HaKodesh Omeres? Hashem said it was a nevuah, it was a medrash. Like what does it mean, Ruach HaKodesh Omeres? So I want to tell you something Gavaldik. A person is composed of nefesh, ruach, neshama. Not pointing to the right places necessarily, but we learned the whole nefesh Chaim about this. A whole sefer nefesh Chaim about it. Nefesh Chaim. Nefesh Chaim. The nefesh of life. Nefesh, ruach, neshama. The neshama is, we talk about it all the time, where the Or Hashem takes a neshama, plants it into this world, it's a plant, and sets it up with a goof, and together we say, Asher Yatzar Sadam B'Chachma, which means, by the way, that it comes from the Bechina of Chachma and the Keser. Uvaravai nekavim, Dolev yadul livnei kisei kvodecha, such a Kabbalistic bracha. Asher Yatzar, we're talking about the Keser, Bria, and what's in Bria? The Kisei HaKavod. Asher Yatzar, world of Yetzira. Come on. Like what you got to think about when you say Asher Yatzar. Sets up the neshama with a goof, that's you and me, and says, okay, here's the neshama, I'm giving you a goof, Alakai neshama shenasato bi, ich bin schon da. I'm not my neshama. Otherwise, it couldn't say Alakai neshama shenasato bi. It couldn't say that because there's already a bi. So you took this keli, you put the neshama in it, and he said, go to work. Every neshama is a little bit different. So go to work, do your thing in this world. And that's Kedusha. The minute you're not doing your thing, you're Masiach Das from it and doing just stuff. So not only you're not achieving greatness or you're being Mavatul Mitzvah, you're violating your whole purpose for creation altogether. The whole reason why any of us were created is in the Shem. Doesn't mean you have to be Aduk Kol Hazman. Kohanim, yes, and Nazirim, yes. Supposed to be part of this world. That's idea. That's how you do it. But the neshama comes into the guf. So the ruach, there's the nefesh. That's me. There's the ruach and the neshama. The neshama, let's say that's the Dvar Hashem comes to the neshama and communicates through the ruach. Ruach is always dibur. Ruach is the communication pipe. That's how Rav Chaim Volozhin explains it. Like the pipe, the tzinor. He calls it a tzinor. That's the ruach. Ruach HaKodesh means that my nefesh, I am getting 100% clear communication from my neshama. That's what it means. Ruach HaKodesh means that there's all kinds of voices around me talking. And there's some people have the spiritual clarity to be able to say, yeah, but my neshama tells me that's wrong. And pay attention to it, because when you pay attention to it, then you've just had Ruach HaKodesh. The Mitzrayim were beating up the Jews. Okay, they're not submitting to this. Beat them up more. But the Ruach HaKodesh in the Jews were saying, no, we need to continue being the Bnei Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And we will survive, and we will grow. So, when you can put aside every voice in the world, including the voices in our head, and listen to your neshama, you have Ruach HaKodesh, and that's why it's called Kodesh. Meaning you've put aside this particular voice within me, you put it aside, separated it from all the other voices, and so instead of hearing now a big balagan, maybe I should do this, maybe I should do that, you can achieve a certain clarity, and that clarity is not called nevuah. Nevuah is when Hashem speaks to you. It's not called nevuah. And by the way, nevuah, the Gemara says, can go to shaitim. Ruach HaKodesh, only tzaddikim. Only somebody who's able to put aside all the voices, the sensible voices, the logical voices, the anti-Semite voices, the frum voices, all the different voices, and say, no, this is. My neshama is telling me that this will be okay. My neshama is telling me this is what I should do. What is Kiddush Hashem? Kiddush Hashem, I never understood the words, really. The guy dies on Kiddush Hashem. Like, what does it mean he died on Kiddush Hashem? Kiddush Hashem means that I made a decision that my mission in life, which is my neshama coming to my guf, Hashem, is more important than life itself. Life is important, b'chai b'hem, but there are things that are more important. Life is important. We're put here not to die, we're put here to live. But sometimes my neshama is telling me that there's some things that are more important than life itself, and that is my actual mission, the whole purpose of the world. So what Kiddush Hashem means, that I made a Kedusha, I set aside Hashem in this world, and I said, okay, this is something different. Ruach HaKodesh, Kalim Atzmius, okay, to be continued. Thank you very much.
Which means everybody else.
Can have if you get rid of the balagan. Not which is not true about nevuah.
Right, which means no one's higher than anybody else.
That's right, like the grow.
Got to be in touch.
Meditate.
Sorry?
Meditate. Shemona Esrei, Tefillah in general, but Shemona Esrei in particular, is a fantastic opportunity to, if you're going to do it all day, take 10 seconds and connect with the neshama and the purpose. What's the purpose? And there's spiritual, moral clarity for the whole day, and possibly for the rest of your life. That's the purpose of Amida.
What you're describing is not limited to Jewish people, though, because like any civil rights leader in the 60s who was being beaten and was thrown in jail and had this moment of clarity.
But when
that's
Hashem,
important.
I'm sure that was his neshama speaking, but
or whoever.
But people who killed.
No, but we have more. We have, meaning like we were created. Hashem kadoshim to you. We were set aside for this, so we have more access to.
Yeah, it's easier.
Easier and more. There's more access. But when the chiddush, in case I didn't say it clearly, of Ruach HaKodesh is everybody can have Ruach HaKodesh.
It's counterintuitive to go to somebody and tell you what your Ruach HaKodesh is because you're in touch with your own neshama.
If you can.
If I go to somebody else and say, what do I do in this situation? When you talk about Ruach HaKodesh, there's no point in that. Because if I truly get in touch, he doesn't know what my neshama is.
Unless he's a Navi.
Unless he's a Navi.
He was a Navi.
Access to
He was a Navi. But otherwise, what the Gadol helps you do is get in touch with your own Kedusha. That's the.
So people who killed
Tell people what to do. It's like
people who killed Al Kiddush Hashem, they didn't have a choice. So is that they're on a higher level that Hashem decided?
It's a big shaila, like if it's called dying Al Kiddush Hashem when you get shot in the back.
Right. And let's say the people from the October
Right,
7th.
but they bring from the Rambam. It's not clear in the Rambam that if you die because of your Jew, you're a Jew. So anyway, it's Kiddush Hashem whether you had kavanah or you didn't. So it makes some sense because if you died because you're a Jew, like the anti-Semitism itself, it shows that the Jews are special and have a mission and are marked. So even though I'm in the middle of assimilating and you shot me. So, but it's not the same as a Rabbi Akiva who was called Yamai, it's Darzi al Pasuk Zeh Masayav Eliyadi Kaimena.
Let's see, Daniel Pearl, and he was.
Yeah,
he
look
said
what he
I'm a
did.
Jew, and he was. So he. I guess he had that Ruach HaKodesh at that point.
Something Gavaldic that Rav Chaim Vital says, I'll just share with you. That Rabbi Kiva was mitzvah his whole life. When can I be Makayim the mitzvah b'chol nafshecha? Okay, what do you have to be mitzvah your whole life? I mean, I'm not mitzvah. I mean, you're supposed to be mitzvah. When am I going to be able to die? Okay, Hashem. So what was he mitzvah about? It comes to by, so we all hope we'll make the right decision. But there's things more important than life. But I mean, most people, I think most decent people will die for their children. There are things that are more important than life, right? But what was he mitzvah about all his life? The Chaim Vital says because he says that this ability that we have to make this decision that I'm willing to give up my life for Hashem, this came from Avraham Avinu and Yitzchak and the Akedah. And Rabbi Akiva was a Ben Gerim. So he was mistapik all his life. Wow. Powerful. Don't stop me. And what's the answer? Rabbi Akiva proved in that episode that yes. Hence we called him Akiva ben Avram, not him, because his father's a guy. Yosef ben Avram. It's a hafladik limud, meaning you could actually, by doing a Maisa Geirus, you could actually be makabel the Mareshas Avos.
Connecting, like a device, you're connecting into
with all the kochas and everything, and all the asar and the that we went through is to give us koach and him koach. But my father was an Irish Catholic, so how do I have the koach? It works. Even better because you have a direct route, even better. It wasn't assimilated, it wasn't... What you can't do is become a...
cable, plug it into a different...
What you can't do is become a Kohen.
The Rav said, Shalom mitzvahs. That's when a person... The fact that we have mitzvahs on us brings the Kedusha.
I tell you what I think it means, neither one. I think it means that I'm going to stop for a second, I'm going to make a bracha. It means I've just dedicated a second of my life to make a bracha. The more dedicated I am, the more Kedusha.
And Rav answered that men have more Kedusha, Kohanim have more Kedusha. If a Kohen, not sure what term mitzvahs, doesn't do the Hakohen, the Etzem has more Kedusha. Like a baby's born in a bed, for example. It's like it's already built
It's
in.
a Kedusha Kala though, but we're not makbid in the... Yeah, a Bukhar is Kaddish. Dedicated for Avodah Hashem.
Isn't that an Etzem thing?
That's the question. Caleb and Atzmius. That's good for the question. The better variation of the famous joke. He's a Kohen Christian. Is that there was an Amaritz making a Pidyon Ben, and then they had to bench. And he said, "Who should bench?" So the Rav said, "The Kohen bench." So he said, "The Kohen left." So he said, "We had another Kohen to bench." So he said, "Well, I'm a Kohen." So the Rav said, "If you're a Kohen, you didn't have to do a Pidyon Ben to begin with." So he said, "Why didn't you tell me that by my last son?" Good. Alum, this is a joke.
That's a question.